Hello, friends, and welcome to the CUInsight Network podcast. My name is Lauren Culp. I'm the president and CEO at CUInsight.com. And it's my job on this show to have conversations with the thought leaders who support the credit union community. Together, we get to identify those issues that affect credit unions and talk about all the best practices out there. The goal being to learn from one another and improve our industry together. My guest on today's show, I'm so thrilled to have him, Jason Stverak, the Chief Advocacy Officer at the Defense Credit Union Council, or DCUC, is joining me. Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I should start off with congratulations to you, with your promotion and hiring as the new head of the National Credit Union Foundation.
Well, thank you. And there's an exciting transition in your career recently, too, moving over to DCUC. We got the chance to speak with Tony Hernandez, the president and CEO over there, in episodes 22 and 70 of the CUInsight Network podcast. So you have to go check those out if you haven't listened to them already. Jason, this is going to be an amazing episode, but I always start off the same way, which is to ask this question. Most of us did not grow up thinking we would get to work with credit unions or even knowing maybe what credit unions were. What did you want to be growing up?
I had a straight kind of career path, not to date myself here, but I grew up with, Alex P. Keaton on TV, and that's kind of who everyone nicknamed me after. And I always wanted to go into politics. So I've kind of held to that. And it's kind of given me a few sidetracks, which have led me up to being the Chief Advocacy Officer here at DCUC.
Well, I am excited to hear more about that. So tell us what the journey has been like. It's so cool to hear that you started in politics and here you are doing the same thing, but on behalf of just the best industry ever. What was the journey like to your role today as Chief Advocacy Officer at DCUC?
I think the journey was like many other people's journeys. There were a lot of career highs and a few career lows. Going from graduating from college in 1996, there again, dating myself, and going to work for my U.S. senator, thinking I got a career track going, lose that election that year in 1996, and then starting going into politics and working for political parties and campaigns and running a state Republican Party for almost 8 years. Working for Rudy Giuliani's presidential campaign, then going into the nonprofit sector, starting my own nonprofit journalism center. And then in 2015, my wife and I were blessed to have a child, and I was tired of having 300 days on the road out fundraising, as many nonprofit leaders have to do. And I was able to take a job up on Capitol Hill for my friend and at that time, current U.S. Congressman from North Dakota, Kevin Cramer. Did that for a few years. And then a pet project of mine is supporting the state of Israel, and worked with Christians United for Israel to help set up their C4 here in Washington, D.C. Then got asked to come back to Capitol Hill for then Congressman Cramer. Did that, then went to work on his Senate campaign. And lo and behold, in 2019, went to work for him in the United States Senate. And after a few years there, was blessed and honored to go over to CUNA as the Deputy Chief Advocacy Officer. And during that time frame, I was moved up to be Interim Chief Advocacy Officer for a time as we started to go through the merger. Then I think I have reached my career destination, or where I should be at the end, is to be working with Tony Hernandez as the DCUC's first Chief Advocacy Officer.
That is the coolest career path. And I am so excited to chat with you about DCUC before we get into some of the really exciting things that are going on over there. And I'm sure you are shaping that role in such a unique and important way. But tell us a little bit, for those who may not know, what is DCUC? Where and how does it add value for credit unions?
DCUC is an incredible, using military terms, force multiplier in terms of advocacy up on Capitol Hill. We like to say that we speak military. We bring to the discussions on issues facing all credit unions a unique perspective of how it impacts our nation's armed services, their families, and as importantly, the millions of veterans that are part of our member institutions all across this country. And DCUC, as the Defense Credit Union Council, has a long history of standing up for, the rights of our members, not just on military installations, but on a lot of the issues that they're facing them in their financial, I like to call it the financial life cycle. As many of them as an 18-year-old going into the service, maybe some of them not even having a checking account at that time. That friendly voice and partner that they have at credit unions on bases across this country to start them that journey as we help them get their first home loan and save for their kids' college. We become that institution that they can trust as we trust them to defend our freedoms all across this country. And DCUC is stepping up to become another national trade association to work with others to speak on behalf of credit unions. And the fact that we are able to leverage our connections with multiple congressional offices because of who we represent, the credit unions that work on behalf of our nation's armed services and veterans. It's an incredible benefit to ensure that good policies that support credit unions are passed and the bad ones are stopped in the halls of Congress.
That is a great summary of the important work that DCUC does. And as the Chief Advocacy Officer over there at the Defense Credit Union Council, what is your perspective on what the advocacy needs are today and what is DCUC doing to really solve those?
I think a lot of the advocacy needs, the issues are similar. They're out there. The banks want us to go, the banks consider a success is when all credit unions are gone and they have total market domination, whether it's, the continual attacks on interchange fees, overdraft, et cetera. The advantage of, and where we're trying to strike out is we have a unique ability with who our members are and who they represent to organize and to train and utilize not only our member institutions, but their members to speak like a chorus. There is one song, but many voices coming together to help advocate on behalf of credit unions and put in place the regulatory and legislative changes we need to ensure that our members and all credit unions have the rights and the tools to serve millions of Americans across this country.
That is so important. And thank you for sharing some of those issues. And to your point, some of the things that we're saying might be similar across the industry, but having those multiple voices is so important. You also mentioned the concept to me before we started recording of really reimagining the footprint and the advocacy that DCUC does. Can you share with us a little bit about what you're working on as the first ever Chief Advocacy Officer at DCUC?
It's an incredible opportunity. It's having that. I grew up watching PBS because I lived out in the country and only had 4 channels. So I fell in love with Bob Ross. Everyone kind of knows the painter who starts with the blank white canvas, and by the end of it, you've got a mountain with a lake and some trees, and it's kind of a cult online now. But what we're doing is at DCUC, and what my daily role is to help coordinate and to help organize and help put everybody moving in the same direction on the issues that are so incredibly important to us, and working with our association partners, whether at the state, at the national level, to help ensure that credit union priorities are pushed and enacted. Two incredibly exciting things that have come out of our conference down in St. Petersburg a couple of weeks ago, our annual meeting. We sent out a press notice on it last week. Is that we're going to be starting our own federal PAC and our own federal national advocacy fund, because we believe that the issues that our members are fighting for on the advocacy front needs to have our ability to support on the PAC side, support candidates that are credit union champions, and where we need to go in and advocate on behalf of issues, on behalf of our members and our nation's armed services and veterans. The need for a national advocacy fund at DCUC is incredibly important. So we're looking forward to getting those spun up here this last part of 2024. And make sure that when we go into 2025, everyone knows that we will have the tools needed to ensure that credit union priorities are pushed across the finish line. And Lauren, one thing, we love the name because it embodies where we are going as an association. It's called Defending Credit Unions PAC and Defending Credit Unions National Advocacy Fund, because that is our role as a national trade association, is to be on that front line defending our credit unions and their members so that they can do what they need to do to make their members' lives easier.
I loved hearing the news that came out, and we'll link to the press release here in the show notes of this episode. So anybody who's interested can see that right there. But it's so important. And to your point, the name is just such a fantastic indicator of the work that you do. And for those who don't know, and I maybe should have asked this earlier, but can you tell us, you're the Defense Credit Union Council. How do you define a defense credit union, and what makes a credit union part of the defense credit union movement?
Every credit union across this country, we consider to be part of our council, because there is not a credit union out there that does not have a veteran, a family member, somebody who knows a veteran, and then also either has been active duty, is active duty, has a family member that's active duty, somebody that's in the Guard, somebody that's in the Reserve. Every credit union is a defense credit union. And we're going to continually reaching out and asking more and more to join DCUC so that we can help them achieve our shared advocacy goals.
I remember hearing Tony say that every credit union has a veteran, and every credit union, a veteran member, a veteran in their field of membership. And I love hearing that kind of reminder, because there are so many important reasons to be a part of the DCUC network. And whether or not you are a credit union that actively, has branches on military bases or something like that, there's so much important work that DCUC does for the industry. I know you already shared a little bit about the PAC and the National Advocacy Fund. Is there any other updates on the PAC or the Advocacy Fund that you can share?
Obviously they're being in the process of being set up. We're going to start soliciting for those two organizations. So we're going to be knocking on a lot of people's doors to help join our crusade to help fight for credit unions and our advocacy priorities. So just keep waiting, check your inbox. We're going to be there frequently asking for support, but most importantly, in the DNA of DCUC, that this is not a top-down, this is a cooperative effort, that as individuals join, as they become part of the PAC or the Advocacy Fund, that their voice is going to be at the table, helping determine where we go, how we go, what's a priority, because we know and understand that listening to our members is the most important job that we have.
I'm so excited to see where DCUC goes from here. And I really appreciate what you're saying about it's not a top-down approach. It's a cooperative, collaborative approach. And I think that resonates with so many in our industry. As we look to the future, what is the focus for the road ahead for DCUC? I know you shared a lot of the exciting things you're working on. What's next?
Meeting our members' needs. I can specifically talk on the advocacy front, is that we are there hand in hand with our members all across this country, helping ensure that the rules and regulations and the laws allow them to serve their members to the maximum level. Not only serve the members, but serve their communities. That, these artificial handcuffs that are put on there on veterans member business lending. The fact that, as I talked about that life cycle that we have with the 18 or 19-year-old that joins the military, that as they want to start a spouse or wants to start a side business, or they're transitioning out and want to start where I come from up in North Dakota to service the oil industry, wants to buy a truck so that they can drive around and be a mechanic, because their local credit union that they've been a member of for 20 or 30 years pushes up against that, it pushes up against the cap. We have to direct them across the street to someone that they've never met, never known before, doesn't have those connections. And, that's wrong. That's at the top of our list, is getting rid of those artificial barriers that are preventing credit unions of all types, shapes, sizes across this country from fully realizing the potential that they have to change the financial lives of their members. And, you're going to see from DCUC, I think you've already seen it throughout this summer, but we're going to be in every conversation, at every table. And if we can't get in the room, we're going to be pounding on the door to make sure that credit union priorities are considered, whether it's a law being considered in Congress or regulation over at the NCUA, because our members demand that of us.
I have seen it, and I know that we will continue to see it. And I think the really exciting thing is the ways that DCUC has really leveled up, I would say, under Tony's leadership and now with you on board as the Chief Advocacy Officer. I am so thrilled to see where you go from here. And to your point, the collaborative and cooperative effort that it takes to get there. Jason, as we wrap up the show, I always like to have some fun with rapid fire questions to let our listeners get to know you better. The questions are rapid, but your answers don't have to be. So are you ready?
Sure. I'm good to go.
All right, let's dive in. Question 1. Who is someone in your life that was a great leader and what makes them so great?
I would say my twin brother, Jeff. If he knew him as much as he had to deal with, in terms of barriers and challenges that he had since birth, that type of drive and never give up is something that inspires me when I'm having those bad days.
That is a great answer. All right, question 2. If you were going to splurge on something, say you want to treat yourself, what is something you might invest a little bit in, whether it's time or resources?
Hunting and camping gear.
I don't know that that's an answer we've had on the show before. That's awesome. Well, I think we have had fishing gear, so kind of adjacent. All right, random question for you. If you travel for work, many of us do, what's that city that you're excited to visit, whether it's for a client visit, going to a conference, or for something else work-related? What's that city you're really excited to see coming up?
Las Vegas.
Ooh, okay, good answer.
Well, it's not for most what people think. I don't gamble and I rarely drink. I like to eat. And so it's the one place within a 3-mile radius you can have every top chef's restaurant in the world. And so instead of having to fly and jet all over the place, I can have that opportunity to sample them during an event or a conference while I'm in Las Vegas.
That is a great answer. I like it. All right. Next question for you. What is a book that you think just everybody should read?
Oh, that's a tough one. A book that everybody should read. It's weird, and it's called The Icon and the Axe. One of the weird things about me is I'm a foreign service major from Baylor University. And if you ever want to study Russia or the Soviet Union, it's one of the best books I've ever read written. And I know that's weird, but that's an incredibly good one. And there's a book on the American Revolution called The Patriots that I think everybody should read. Okay.
We will link to those in the show notes here. Those are both, I think, the first time we've gotten both those books. So that will be good ones for me to add to my bookshelf as well. Next question for you. What has been your best hack for creating balance and integration between your work life and what I always call your life life?
My best hack?
Yep.
I would have to say that purposely forgetting where my phone is. Mm-hmm. And the fact that most people's lives are dictated by what pops up on their screen, whether their next meeting, their phone call, and creating that time at dinner, as much as possible, an hour with my son and those types of things. And that in going with the knowledge that rarely is there a work project that cannot wait until tomorrow.
I like that. That is a great hack. Okay, well, as we wrap up the show here, we're going to link to everything we talked about today in the show notes. I know I mentioned that along the way, so check those out for the books and the announcements and things like that we mentioned. But Jason, my last question for you is, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share or final asks of our listeners today?
Kind of, they'll meld in together. I know that if you're in advocacy or if you're a credit union champion, whether it's at the county, the city, the state level, or the federal level, is that there are days where things seem daunting and we always seem under attack. We have the ICBA with their near constant daily, trying to go after our nonprofit status or tax status. Everyone asking the roles of credit unions, in people's lives. I'm excited with the fact that knowing that tomorrow is the next best day for credit unions in the country. And the day after that is the next best day for credit unions. Because a credit union all across this country, as you talk about cooperative and collaborative, The one thing I love and have loved about credit unions the most since I was 6 years old at Black Hills Federal Credit Union in Rapid City, South Dakota, is that when I walked in that door, I knew that there was somebody who cared about my future, not their future and their stock price, but my future of setting up a savings account and, learning about credit and, how do I save for college, or how do I get my first loan, or, that willingness to say the we is more important than me is at the heart of what the credit union movement is. And I am ecstatic, more than I could probably share with anybody, each day that to know that I get to go into DCUC and help work on behalf of nearly 40 million members of defense and veterans related credit unions to help them improve people's lives. And I know that, it isn't about it, for our friends in the banking sector, the stock price at the end of the quarter is how they judge their success. We judge our success by the community's lives that we improve. And that is incredibly exciting. And for those that are sometimes get beaten down or tired in terms of advocacy on credit unions, tomorrow is our next best day. The day after that is going to be even better because of who we are in this movement and the people that are our members. So that's kind of my last thought, Lauren.
That is just a great way to wrap up this episode. I'm so thrilled to see where DCUC goes next, as they've added you to the team earlier this year. And I know Tony and co have been making some really exciting strides for defense credit unions and really our entire industry. So thank you for taking the time today to share all of this exciting stuff with us.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. You have a wonderful day. And I know we'll be about a month out from the election. So just make sure that people get involved and make sure that they show up to vote either early or absentee or on election day.
That is absolutely so important. Well, I hope you stay well. Hope we get to run into each other in person here soon. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today to the CUInsight Network podcast. And we will be back again next time.